then continues, I say to you, Mark says, I say to you, good. Matthew says, arise. Okay, so I say to you is in Mark and Luke, not Matthew. I say to you, arise, arise, arise. Okay, that's the same in all three, but there's a comma. Arise, take up your bed, arise and take up your bed, arise and take up your couch. Okay, I'll have the and. I like it without this and, because if there's the comma, you don't need the and. If there was no comma, you would need the and. But there is a comma in all three. I like it without the and. Well, actually, in Mark, the phrase, and take up your bed, has the and. So maybe I should include it just so that he is answering himself more fully. Because he's saying, which is easier to say with the palsy, your sins be forgiven you, or to say, arise and take up your bed and walk. So now maybe it would make sense if I have him say, I say to you, arise and take up your bed. Well, he adds a little bit in Mark, and go your way into your house. In Luke he says, and go into your house. Matthew he says, and go to your house. So since it's a bit different from what Mark says already, I think it's fine to make it a little bit more different without the and, because he tells him two things now. Arise is 1, take up your bed is 2, and go to your house is 3. So the and should come right before the last one. Whereas in Mark, he says, arise, and take up your bed, and go your way into your house. That doesn't flow as well. In Luke, he says, I say to you, arise, and take up your couch, and go into your house. I mean, they use the and twice in Mark and Luke, but it just doesn't flow. So, I'm not going to put it. I'm just going to have take up your bed. Take up your is in Luke. Take up your is in Mark. Take up your is all three. Take up your. Bed is in Matthew. Bed is in Mark. Couch is in Luke. He's already said bed earlier in Mark, so that would be a little bit too much to change. So I'm going to keep bed from Matthew and Mark. Take up your bed, comma, Mark, comma, Matthew, comma is after couch in Luke, but the comma is there, gray, comma. Mark says, and go your way into your house. Matthew says, and go to your house. So and go is in both. Luke says, and go. Okay, and go is all three. Into your house is Luke. Your way is in Mark. So I'll have to have your way before into your house, because that is in Mark. So your way is what I'm looking for right now. Go to your house. So just your way from Mark. Matthew finishes with to your house. Mark says into your house. Luke says into your house. So I'll say into from Mark and Luke, because it's the double witness. And then your house from all three. You know, I think I've done this before, where I had half the word wasn't included, but the other half was. I think it was actually this word, into, just a different place. The word to was in one place, into was in another, so I said the to part was in both, in was not. And the reason why I'm doing that, you might think it's ridiculous, but I had this thought that someday, perhaps long in the future, after this is all done, I want to have 4 different people actually reading through this entire book, one person for each gospel account, and they'll just pause when their part stops, and this is where the colors really comes in helpful. They'll pause when their portion stops, and then continue when their gospel account continues on or is amidst 2 or 3 others. So there'll be, like, at all times there'll be one voice speaking, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, rarely 4 voices would all say the same word. So for that, I'll break up a word in half, but I'm not going to, in the address, say that the word to is also there. No, actually, I will. I really will. Yeah, I should, because I'm not saying that half a word is there. I'm saying that a whole word is there in one gospel account, and in the other gospel account, still the whole word, and it's slightly different. So yeah, I'll do that. I'll include the word in the addressing, and I'll have half of it here, into your house, and that's just the end. Matthew then says, and he arose. Mark says, and immediately he arose. Luke says, and immediately he rose up. So and is in all three. Immediately is in Mark and Luke. He is in all three. Rose up. versus arose in Mark and Matthew. I think it sounds better to say he rose up than just he arose. When you tell someone arise, that fits, but when you say he arose, oh, maybe I'm just being too picky. There is something that I remember, and I have applied this before. When you're explaining the same thing multiple times, like in this situation, he's telling someone to arise, and then later on, he arose. Even though it's not exactly the same word, it is pretty much. It's just arose, arise, past, present. The thing is, whenever you're explaining the same thing, you want to use, as much as you can, a different way of explaining it, a different word to explain the same thing. You'd want to say, like, the guy ran to the bus stop, and then in a different way, he got tired from his jog to the bus stop. And then on a third time, if you have to explain a third time, you would say, next time, if I have to sprint to the bus stop, I will be more careful. But you want to use different words. So I think that because of that, I want to say he rose up instead of he arose, because Jesus told him to arise. So now it would be like he tells him, arise. So what does he do? He rose up. If it was going to be like Jesus told him to arise and he arose, yes, that could fit, but it's just a little bit repetitive. Just a tiny bit repetitive, whereas the extra difference in wording makes it fresh. So I'll have it, he rose up. Rose up only from Luke. Yeah. Let's keep it fresh. He rose up before them. No before them in Mark. No before them. So before them is also Luke. And took up that whereon he lay is Luke. Took up the bed in Mark. Matthew. And departed. So it doesn't have that part. Mark and Luke say took up the bed. Or I could say and took up that whereon he lay. It's smoother to just say the bed instead of that whereon he lay. That's a bit too many words. It's not adding to the story, that whereon he lay, as opposed to the bed. Other times I know I've picked all the words, and I usually do that, but this doesn't really make any sense. It's really unnecessary. Picked up that whereon he lay, and went to his own house. Or just, he rose up, picked up his bed, and went back to his house. Yeah, picked up his bed. It's just different now. I think it's better to have it with the fewer words. Took up the bed. So took up is both Mark and Luke. The comma is after arose in Matthew and Mark. There is a comma in all three. I just have the added words from Luke, so I'll say the commas from all three. He rose up, I'm skipping the and, because there's too many ands here, just like earlier. The bed, that whereon he lay. So these words, the bed, are only in Mark. The bed whereon he lay. There is a comma after that. He lay, comma, and went forth. Matthew, comma, and. Okay, comma, and is all three. Mark has more. It says, and went forth before them all. Matthew departed to his house. That's it. Went forth before them all. Departed. Went forth before them all, or departed? I want to say departed before them all. Departed is, I think I like departed more than went forth before them all. I'll have before them all, no matter what. That's much needed, more description. But between went forth and departed, what does Luke say? And took up their hand, and departed to his own house. So departed is used in Luke, departed is used in Matthew. Maybe I should have both. Went forth before them all, and departed to his house. Yeah, I think I should do that. So before them, departed to his own house. So I could have the portion from Mark come first, went forth before them all, and then have it follow up with Matthew, Luke, departed to his own house. And went forth before them all. Only from Mark, now Matthew, Luke, and departed to his house. And departed to his own house. Yeah, so this is orange now. And departed to his, Luke only, the word own, and then back to orange for both, house. And I think only Luke has glorifying God. Matthew says departed to his own house. Yep, doesn't mention glorifying God. Mark went before them all, insomuch they were all amazed, and glorified God, saying, we never saw... Oh no, they're glorifying God, saying, we never saw it in this fashion. So Luke says glorifying God, talking about him, comma, glorifying God.